Robellia's world falls apart when she is unceremoniously cast aside by her husband, Alexandros Castilla, the Emperor of the Castilla Empire. She is devastated beyond repair. The position she has held for so long has been ripped from her, all for a mere concubine, consort Aisha. Her husband even has the gall to tell her that she is merely an accessory for him to access Blanchette's power. He claims that he has never once loved or cared for her, for he only has eyes for Aisha. A girl cries out from utter frustration upon reading this scene of the novel. She doesn't even understand what's so great about the Emperor, compelling the Empress to live a solo life instead. The girl's latest novel craze is entitled The Flower from Another World, and to say that she's engaged is an understatement. However, she is rooting not for the female lead nor the male lead, but for someone entirely unexpected, the first wife of the Emperor. The story goes that the main protagonist travels to another world and ends up winning the Emperor's love in the end. A typical plot, to say the least. However, what doesn't sit well with her is how the Emperor simply turned his back on his faithful wife without a thought. Distraught, Empress Robellia falls ill and dies alone while the shameless couple are busy being lovey-dovey with each other. What's worse is that the moment Robellia is gone, the Emperor is elated to crown Aisha as the new Empress. If this is not a red flag, I don't know what is. After her sympathetic rant on Robellia's behalf, the girl falls asleep, intending to greet a new day once she wakes up. What she does not expect is to wake up in the Castilla Empire, and she has become Empress Robellia Blanchet at that. Thinking that she's in a dream, she does all manner of things to wake up. But after a slap here and a bucket of water there, she finally accepts that this is her life now. She has entered the body of Robellia, someone who has such a tragic end. As she sits in her room, her maid informs her that after 2 weeks, the Emperor has finally granted her an audience with him. Naturally, Robellia doesn't want to see him, for he is the reason why the original Robellia's life has become hell. But then she decides to grab this opportunity instead. No one is going to live her life for her. She determinedly makes her way to the Emperor's study, her goal vivid in her mind. But upon seeing the Emperor's impeccable features, well, let's just say that she gets a bit sidetracked. Can't blame her though. For such a jerk, he has the face of an angel. Thankfully, she gets a hold of herself. Prior to their meeting, she has already gathered adequate information. She now knows that they are still at the beginning of the novel. While she is deep in thought, Alexandros asks her if she has some sort of change of heart, for she is not acting as usual. At this point, there's only one thing she can do. She has to get herself out of their way. With a smile on her face, she asks her husband for a divorce. The Emperor does not take her words well, even chastising her for making a joke before him. Robellia expects this, of course. After all, Robellia is the one who handles internal affairs in the palace without any complaints. The original Robellia loves the Emperor so much that she even volunteers to do Aisha's part as well. Poor woman! That man is slowly becoming irredeemable in my eyes, to be honest. The new Robellia, however, will not let the same thing happen to her. She insists that she is serious about her request, telling the Emperor that she does not consider herself worthy to be his Empress. With an amused smile, Alexandros speculates that she is merely upset that he has been inattentive for the last 2 weeks. He apologizes to her, promising to come see her every day from then on. The charming smile he gives her almost melts her heart, but she knows that he is merely using sweet words to console her for now. She knows the tragedy that awaits her, so she will never be able to trust him. Steadfast, she insists that she is not fit for the position, even suggesting that Aisha can succeed her instead. Alexandro, thinking that she is jealous, assures her that he only accepted Aisha as a consort for diplomatic purposes. Robellia is irked that he thinks she is jealous when she doesn't really care if he pours all his love for Aisha. What she wants is a divorce, but the Emperor refuses to give it to her. Of course, why would he divorce her so suddenly? Alexandros offers that she can do whatever she wants other than a divorce. Smirking, Robellia bids him farewell. If he won't divorce her willingly, she'll force him to do so. On her way back, she runs into Aisha herself. Not interested in her at all, she tries to walk past her, but the girl begins to act friendly to her, so she is forced to act polite. But then Aisha asks her if what she did just now was another tactic to get the Emperor's attention. Well, it seems like the so-called main protagonist has a bit of a dark streak. Or could it be more? We just have to find out. Robellia can't help but laugh at how childish she is. She mockingly tells Aisha that she is trying to fight over nothing. As she turns her back on her, she makes it clear that Aisha can have Alexandros all to herself, for she neither wants him nor is she interested in him. Gotta love how easily she shuts Aisha down. With her words, the poor girl is left gobsmacked, gritting her teeth in anger. After all, Robellia does not care if they are each other's soulmates, as long as they keep her out of it. In fact, she has decided to become the villainess. She will spend a chunk of the national treasury until Alexandros divorces her. Another part of her grand plan is to move into Aisha's palace while she has the Empress's palace renovated. Of course, Aisha acts like a great injustice has been done to her. Part of the reason that the original Robellia perishes in the novel is because of how neglected she is when it becomes obvious that the Emperor does not favor her. The attendants become lax to the point that there is a draft in the Empress's palace. Wanting to be like Aisha, who is frugal, Robellia does nothing about it. As a result, she grows sick and dies. The new Robellia will not make the same mistake. Robellia is actually quite amused by how annoyed Aisha is by the situation. She even suggests that if she doesn't like sharing a space with her, then she should move to another palace instead. She is embracing her role as a villainess quite well. Robellia already expects Aisha to go running to the Emperor. She is right, of course, because not long after, Alexandros barges in during her tea time. He confronts her about taking over the consort's palace, but the Empress cheekily reminds him that he told her she can do whatever she wants. Alexandros calls her ridiculous, telling her to build a different palace if she wants. With a hard look on her face, she insists that she wants the consort's palace and that it was him who told her she could do whatever she wants. For a moment, Robellia confidently faces the Emperor's intense gaze without fear in her eyes. Eventually, the Emperor gives in, telling her to do as she wishes. For a second, she is happy that she's won, but then she realizes that he still doesn't want to divorce her. She decides not to worry about that for now. Surprisingly, after living in the consort's palace, Robellia notes that it is unusually quiet. After all, she is expecting Aisha to cause a scene or something, but it seems like that's not the case. Even so, she decides to divert her attention to something more noteworthy, moving her stuff into her temporary home. She ends up taking up 70% of the space, and yet Aisha is to complain about it. Every time she encounters Aisha in the palace, the girl acts like she's not even there. She looks upset enough, which means that the Emperor has spoken to her to keep quiet. She needs her to pick a fight with her as an opportunity to get a divorce. At this rate, she will end up getting treated like trash just like in the original story. She has to do something even more wicked if she wants to get out of this place. With that in mind, she orders that she wants a new dress made. Everyone is surprised when the Empress decides to throw away all her dresses and demands to have a new wardrobe. She even has a famous designer come in for her. As Robellia gazes at the catalog, she recalls her hard past when she never even had a chance to wear dresses such as these. Even though she ran away from her family, she still sent them most of the money she had earned. She is not used to having expensive things, but she has to pretend. After all, Robellia is an empress, and she'll become suspicious if she acts otherwise. The designer is enthusiastically explaining the details of his creation, so Robellia is actually quite guilty of what she's about to do. She flings the catalog away, calling his work terrible. That's so harsh, Robellia! Poor man! She continues to insult the designer, telling him to show her something else other than the rags he has shown her so far. The designer insists that he doesn't have anything else, but Robellia knows he's lying. She knows that Aisha has been bragging about meeting him next week, which means that he has something prepared for her already. Oh, she is out for blood! Poor Mr. Dressmaker. Sorry, man, but Robellia takes her role as a villainess very seriously. The designer tries to argue that those designs suit consort Aisha better, but this irks Robellia even more. She deems him arrogant and demands that he show her the design right that instant. Seeing as the Empress has her guards moving closer in a threatening way, the designer panics and calls for his other designs instantly. Once Robellia inspects the dresses, she decides that she'll have them. When asked which one she likes, she declares that she wants them all. If she's going to be wasteful, she might as well buy them all. She will then sell them secretly and prepare funds in preparation for after the divorce. Later on, the Emperor is bombarded with concerns from his officials regarding the Empress's extravagant expenses. She apparently managed to spend 0.02% of the Empire's budget in one day. One of the officials even suggests that consort Aisha is even more suitable as the Empress. However, the Emperor merely dismisses their complaints and suggestions as a nuisance. He sternly tells them that a few dresses will not affect their finances. He questions them as to why they think that Robellia's ability as an Empress is not worth a few dresses. He reminds them that he has chosen her as his Empress and that they have no right to question him. The Minister of Finance, the one who suggested replacing Robellia earlier, is replaced and sentenced to be confined to his estate for 3 months. He also reminded them that the Empress's prestige is the prestige of the Empire and his as well. He then demands a dress to be made that's 10 times more splendid than the ones she has made. After the meeting with the officials, the Emperor's secretary tries to warn the Emperor about the consequences of appearing capricious in front of the people. Alexandros, with a menacing look on his face, reminds him that his way of solidifying his power is through fear. If he intended to be a good and wise king, then he wouldn't have killed his own father with his own hands. The secretary can only recall how the Emperor rose to power, getting rid of his father and brother without hesitation. He subdued barbarians and expanded the Empire's borders. He defeated those who had challenged him because of his young age, and did not stop until they were in ruins. He can only hope that the Empress does not see the dresses gifted to her by the Emperor as something negative. Sometime later, Robellia is bewildered when boxes of a dress and pieces of jewelry arrive in her quarter. What is going on? When she was told that Alexandros had sent her something, she thought that he was going to tell her off for spending so much. Well, it's not every day that you get rewarded for bad behavior. Why on earth did he send her all of these? The dress is even worth the entire castle. It comes with a message from the man himself, telling her how he'd like to see her wear the dress when they meet. Robellia doesn't understand why Alexandros is doing this. After all, he is not supposed to have any interest in Robellia whatsoever. She sees how happy her attendants are for her, thinking that the Emperor has finally taken notice of the Empress's love for him. Her maids are naive, but she doesn't hate them. They have remained devoted to the original Robellia even as her influence in the palace has weakened. She is rather grateful for them, however, they don't understand what she needs. For now, she focuses on the Castleworth dress. She thought that her spending earlier was top-notch, but it seems that the Emperor is on a different level. When the maids ask her if she would like to try on the dress, she announces that she will do no such thing because she plans to divorce the Emperor soon. She can't take a gift from a man she will part ways with. During the Friday dinner banquet, Robellia arrives in a stunning dress. This event is held every Friday, and she rather thinks that it is a ridiculous way to show off the Empire's wealth. But then again, this event is only possible because of Robellia's excellent event proposal. An official approaches her, complimenting her for the splendid banquet. It's Count Bartlett, a side character who wants Aisha to be the Empress. Looking at his mustache, Robellia can't help but compare it to a goat's. Rather than accepting the compliment, she giggles at him, telling him that she will not be fooled by his empty words. The Count is quick to panic, trying to deny the accusation. She then asks why he suddenly feels grateful to her when he hasn't felt that for the last 3 years. She quickly turns away, leaving the man distraught as he tries to call her back. Robellia honestly has no idea why he has suddenly felt the need to flatter her now. After all, the real Robellia has already disappeared from this world. The Emperor then appears, and once again, Robellia can't help but note how handsome he is. She used to cringe at the way the novel described the male lead, but now, she really can't say that it was all exaggeration. Their eyes meet, and for a second, it seems like it's just the two of them. Until the sickeningly enthusiastic Aisha calls out to the Emperor using his name rather than his title. She rushes to the Emperor, claiming how much she misses him and instantly attaching herself to him. Like a leech. Robellia can only raise her eyebrow at the scene before her. The consort then begins blabbering about how much she has been looking forward to the banquet because she gets to dine with the Emperor and the Empress like a family. Robellia can't believe that Aisha's attempts to provoke her are so weak and obvious. She even keeps on checking when the Empress will get flustered. Robellia refuses to waste her energy in such pettiness, so she decides to focus on her other objective for the evening. She approaches the unsuspecting Marquis Wilhelm and splashes him with a glass of wine. With a devious look on her face, she apologizes, excusing her hand for slipping. Everyone is shocked by the display. The whole banquet is at a standstill. The situation escalates even further when she slaps the Marquis straight in the face. She even claims that her hand is slipping again. Goodness, Robellia! You're one ruthless lady! That dude probably did something horrid for you to act like this. Horrid things he did indeed. The man dared to touch one of Robellia's attendants. In fact, he is known for harassing young women. Well then, he totally deserves the smack he received and more. Robellia is enraged, determined to avenge her loyal servant no matter what. So she continues to slap him over and over in front of everybody. That is until Alexandros' voice echoes in the hall, calling out her name. Robellia knows he will stop her, but not before she can give her finishing blow. With a swing of her foot, she kicks the marquise between his legs. The emperor approaches her, grabbing her hand. Robellia knows that this will definitely get her a divorce, but instead of the scolding everyone's expecting, Alexandros merely checks on her hand. What? Robellia is starting to think that this man has gone insane. Alexandros is visibly worried about her injured hand caused by the smack fest she just did earlier. He orders the doctor to treat the Empress's bruised hand. Cheekily, Robellia suggests that Marquise Wilhelm also needs a doctor. The Emperor agrees with her without hesitation, confusing her even more. Why is he taking her side? He didn't even scold her in any way. I think Mr. Emperor is growing soft. When their eyes meet, the man gives her a sweet smile. She is so flustered that she has to turn away. The guests, as usual, begin gossiping about how much the Emperor dotes on the Empress. Naturally, Robellia is panicking. This is not how it's supposed to be. She has been doing things that will make him hate her. Instead, the man is now even winking at her and putting his hand on her shoulders after announcing the resumption of the banquet. Robellia glances at Aisha, and as expected, she does not look happy. Robellia speculates that Alexandros is doing this for appearance's sake. But one thing is for sure, this feels off. During the meal, the Emperor even teases her that she should eat her fill since she used so much energy earlier. But then Aisha decides to insert herself in the conversation, commenting on the Empress's dress. Her backhanded compliments are so obvious. She emphasizes the amount of new dresses Robellia has, making it sound like she's praising her. But Aisha is clearly trying to emphasize how much more frugal she is compared to the Empress. This girl is so manipulative! Alexandro then asks Robellia why she did not wear the dress he gifted her, inquiring if it was not fancy enough for her. With Alexandros' question about Robellia not choosing to wear the dress he had prepared for her, along came her confusion as to why he's suddenly acting like he cares. She's already made it clear she wants no good relationship with him, but the realization dawns on her that that's exactly what the others might be misinterpreting. And so, she decides to one-up the Emperor. Wanting to discourage Alexandros from speaking about gifts publicly, Robellia states that such clothes aren't suitable gifts for someone of her nobility. But cities or castles would. She believes she asked for too much, but upon seeing Alexandros' smile, she realized otherwise. The Emperor questions her demands, and Alexandros, holding her hand, insists they weren't sufficient. He affectionately declares her his only Empress, leaving Robellia confused about his indulgence. Aisha interrupts, expressing contentment with being by Alexandros' side, dismissing the need for lavish gifts. Robellia suspects Aisha's timing is driven by a desire for Alexandros' attention. However, Alexandros is quick to set her straight. He says she has no treasure, merely the set budget given to her position. Burn! I guess? The Emperor also proceeds to lecture Aisha about her misconceptions, questioning her ability to fulfill her responsibilities if she has such perceptions. Robellia sits silent as Alexandros lectures Aisha on actions that should be taken for the imperial family. She answers meekly when asked if she understands. Though Robellia suspects she didn't, Aisha will surely keep to herself for a while. More importantly, Robellia is trying to remember if Alexandros had called out or even reprimanded Aisha from the original story. Judging by the guest's reaction, it hasn't happened before. No matter the case, Robellia decides to eat, all the while observing Alexandros, who she thought was just an authoritarian. Meanwhile, he's just enticing the spooked guest to have a drink with him. Robellia won't lose in acting bad in public either. She proceeds to nitpick about the food endlessly, shocking the guests at how much the supposed gentle empress has changed and how opposite Aisha acts. Still, Robellia is unbothered since she heard it all, although she doesn't notice Alexandros observing her. After the quite eventful dinner party, nothing much of interest happened for Robellia. That is, until the arrival of a certain letter. It was the invitation from Duchess Selimon, though Robellia hasn't heard of her. Not even in the original. There's nothing about the Duchess on Robellia's papers that she has read, so they're not relatives, so she theorized that they must be friends. Since Robellia is a supporting character, it's likely her friends aren't mentioned in the story. It would be strange if she refused the invitation. Actually, she would be considered insane if she did so, with the Empire burning people supposedly possessed by evil at the stake. Which is something she doesn't want. Regardless, she's still curious about the invite. Robellia thought it better to go out as well, thinking ladies' tea parties are the best way to gather information, aside from asking maids and reading books. And so she went, meeting others outside the palace for the first time except designers. Judging from the Duchess's appearance, she seems to be the most influential, so Robellia proceeds with caution. Though initially Robellia hasn't figured out whether or not Duchess Celimon is friend or foe, the answer becomes quite clear after the latter's praise of her dress, calling it luxurious. Apparently, speaking about money is very vulgar and considered taboo among the nobles. The Duchess deliberately used the word luxurious for one thing, and no way does she lack basic etiquette. This leads Robellia to wonder if nobody truly cares about her character, even in the Empire setting, and even though her family is but a remnant of their former status. She must have thought she was a countrywoman with no manners, but she's not the Robellia of old. Robellia confidently flaunts her dress, saying it's from the many designs she can just choose from at Wystan Mystic, the very shop Duchess Celimon has to place an order in. This causes the Duchess to walk away embarrassed, and Robellia smirks at how the older woman couldn't stand in a fight she started. Still, she wonders who the other chair at their table was for, but moments later, Aisha makes an entrance. Everyone else makes sure to greet Aisha, and Robellia concludes that by doing so, they are ignoring her as the Empress. As the other guests greet Aisha, she makes her way to greet Robellia. But all the latter thinks about is how everyone is ignoring her. Not for selfish reasons. According to imperial etiquette, if a person of a higher rank is seated, never greet someone who has just arrived, and yet everyone ignored it. Aisha sits herself as the crowd continues to pour in their compliments. Robellia still stays silent, working the whole thing out in her head. She concludes Aisha is the one responsible for her invite, deliberately to put her down a peg. Robellia smirks, deciding she's done. She sweeps the table, creating a mess, and asserts that if the mansion's etiquette is chaotic, the tea table should match. As apologies ensue, Robellia confronts Aisha, suspecting her involvement. Aisha tries to excuse her lack of manners by saying she's new to the imperial castle, but Robellia just finds it annoying. Anyway, she did her damage. Aisha never expected to bow down to her, someone she looked down on. With a smile, Robellia says now that the party tea was spilled, she'll be leaving. But before that, she warns Aisha of her behavior around her from now on. Apparently, like a kid asking for help from their parents, Aisha told the Emperor of what had happened. However, Alexandros merely states that she has to take care of that herself, since as Emperor, he's too busy to deal with matters that occurred at tea time. Aisha then proceeds to project her innocence, asking if she had bothered the Emperor instead. Complete with tears in her eyes, too. The pretentious girl! Alexandros took a while to answer, and when Aisha replied, he knew it was a bogus story. So he asks her what she wants to do, and a visible change in her smile can be seen. Under the pretense of concern, Aisha states that she's worried for Robellia, as others have been increasingly insulting her after the tea party. She says that since talking to Aisha about her behavior directly would result in her not listening, Aisha says that Robellia will listen if it's from her husband. That night, after Aisha's request, Alexandros finds himself walking down a hallway. A smile curls on his lips as he thinks about how Aisha exceeded his expectations. She wasn't naive like her appearance, but rather clever. She hid her true intentions, but he noticed the slight change in her smile when they talked about what she wanted. And that was for him to reproach Robellia. In a world devoid of innocence, Alexandros acknowledges Aisha's hidden cruelty beneath her beauty. Despite keeping her close for that reason, her increasing demands have become bothersome. That night, he visits Robellia, who opens the door with a vexed expression. She inquires about the urgent matter, but he remains silent, only asking to enter. Alexandros realizes that it's been over a month since he last visited her room. Husband of the year, ladies and gentlemen. Anyway, Robellia continues asking why he suddenly visited, since he's putting off their meeting for weeks, but Alexandros laughs, arguing there's no reason for a husband and wife to have to see each other. Alexandros continues to observe Robellia, and he concludes that her expressions have been diverse lately. She didn't have that before. It was all nervousness and a low-key smile then, but now, accepting that the divorce proposal isn't just to get his attention, it's like she's a different person. Unfazed, Alexandros appreciates that Robellia no longer imitates Aisha despite the added luxury. Surprised by her newfound look after 3 years, he praises her expressions. Confused, Robellia, expecting an important discussion, decides to go back to bed when that's not the case. Alexandros again repeats himself, and Robellia retorts that she's not wearing it for him, something he's quick to agree with, since she keeps mentioning divorce anyway. He merely refers to the fact that he likes how Robellia is able to dress beautifully herself, and this makes the Empress fall silent. Her mind could only focus on the sudden tickle in her heart. Alexandros is quick to observe her again though, asking why her cheeks suddenly turned red. After a brief moment of silence, Robellia reasons, not to a good avail, that the lighting must have been the reason for the sudden color on her cheeks. Alexandros himself covers his mouth, making him look like he's thinking, but actually, he's covering his smile. Things are more interesting than he initially thought. Amused by Robellia's startled demeanor, Alexandros appreciates her transformation from a wooden doll to a more vulnerable state. During a discussion about the dinner party and Marquis Wilhelm, he reveals having the Marquis taken away for aiding the Radican throne's power grab. Alexandros, acting out of love, covered for Robellia, removing the Marquis from the public eye to initiate an official investigation. So Alexandros shares his opinion. It seems the Emperor thinks that he and Robellia can have a good cooperative relationship. The public thinks they have a dry relationship. Them not expecting they're working together brings advantages. Robellia outright refuses, though. Working with her soon-to-be ex-husband isn't logical after all. Alexandros again offers to give her what she wants, but she gets vexed that he isn't giving up. Their pride clashes, almost like a dare to see who'll win between them. But as Robellia speaks, Alexandros gets an overwhelming desire. Uncontrollably, he raises his hand, intent on touching the soft, beckoning lips of his wife. His only thoughts are his desire to have her in his own hands. Alexandros' face inches closer and closer to Robellia's. His gaze is fixed on her lips, and his desire to touch them is stronger than ever. He knows he should snap out of it, and he isn't sure how Robellia will react to his sudden desire. He recognizes the difficulty in forming a relationship with her, and yet he reaches in even closer this time for a kiss. Before their lips touch, though, Robellia grabs a pillow and smacks the Emperor with it. While blushing uncontrollably, all she can muster is asking Alexandros if he's crazy. Furious, Robellia hits Alexandros, declaring they're getting a divorce. Ignoring his attempts to calm her, she kicks him out of her room. Later, she reflects on her mixed emotions, but ultimately goes to bed, convinced he doesn't have feelings for her. Despite disliking Alexandros' womanizer image, she questions her own excitement for the kiss. The next day, she wakes up unrested, more concerned about hitting the Emperor and the potential consequences. Still, if Alexandros hasn't acted as of now, he might have let it slide. The events of last night bothered Robellia, but she still has a lot on her plate. As Empress, she's in charge of some affairs in court, like support for cultural development, welfare for the working class, charity, and diplomacy with smaller countries. Unimportant tasks, but still needed. They're supposed to be shared by her and the noble consort, but Aisha is still new to the imperial castle. Actually, Aisha and her arrival in Robellia's body were the same, so she should technically also be excluded. Unable to convince anyone, Robellia wonders why she's still not released. Concerned maids suggest she rest while they handle the workload, but she hesitates, remembering her role as the villainess. Meanwhile, Aisha receives compliments from the maids about her hair. Suddenly, Robellia enters, shocking Aisha. Laughing, she exposes the truth and shifts the workload to Aisha, urging her to stop being lazy. Robellia comfortably sits on her couch, lounging as she sips on her cup. She left all the work to Aisha, and of course, she didn't do so well. Aisha tried to ask for a bit more time, saying she doesn't know about anything yet, but Robellia won't have it. The noble consort even tries to invoke Alexandros' name, but it does her no good. Aisha's performance is less than stellar. Repairs and maintenance areas are left unattended. Wrong people are extended for sponsorships, and in general, money is a waste. Just after 3 days, Aisha managed to ruin the delicate operation of the Empire with her work. Aisha's maids plead for her to resume her workload due to the deteriorating situation. Though Robellia possesses the strength to handle it, she refuses to return the unfairness of the past. Angrily questioning why they approached her when she's not seeking a job, she inquires about Aisha's well-being. Learning that Aisha is struggling even with assistance, Robellia declines the offer, kicks out the visitors, and continues her strike. However, Emperor Alexandros eventually visits, proposing to take responsibility for Aisha's education, hoping to lessen Robellia's workload in the future. Judging by the way Alexandros speaks, Robellia assumes that this isn't just a private meeting with him. Still, the Emperor goes on about taking responsibility, saying he was inconsiderate and made things worse. He doesn't want her to forgive him, but he promises it will never happen again, even betting his name on it. Robellia starts to speak, but it seems Alexandros isn't done yet, saying he has no authority disputing affairs of the palace over her, so this comes as a request, not an order. As Emperor, he genuinely asks Robellia a favor, his companion in governing the Empire. Imagine Robellia's shock with Alexandros' sincere apology. Though she doesn't care if he or Aisha suffers, she does feel sorry for the people. So Robellia takes Alexandros to his word, saying that if he's promising it will not happen again, he should write a memorandum. Alexandros agrees, but if it was a memorandum, then there should be a condition met if he doesn't get to keep his promise. He asks Robellia to choose what it will be, and naturally, she asks for a divorce. Though irritated, the emperor accepts, saying he doesn't plan on breaking his promise anyway. While Alexandros asks for a pen and paper, Robellia can't help but feel disappointed that he still didn't agree to divorce immediately. He's making all this too complicated. In any case, Alexandros stuck to his word. Aisha had 5 teachers teaching her almost 10 hours a day. All the while, Robellia went back to work, toiling for 15 days, reverting the empire back to normal. They even started hearing rumors of the people praising her. As Robellia and her maid stroll through the gardens, with the latter giving the former news of the people's gratitude towards her, which she dismisses, Aisha stands in the corner, hands clenched at Robellia's proud exploits. Robellia's maids continued to talk about the Empress's exploits. She had thought of the idea to hire administrative experts. Still, when they let her know of the people's affection towards her, Robellia gets shy and blushes, thus endearing her towards her maids even more. But there's one person unhappy about all of this. Aisha's expression hardens as she overhears their conversation. Later on, she had her own private tea amongst friends. They praised the flowers she had put out, and Aisha reveals they were all gifts from Alexandros. The ladies affirm how the kind emperor truly loves Aisha, but Count Drape was there to set it straight. Alexandros was only nice to Aisha. He starts talking a bit more about politics, and Aisha allows him to after she notices he becomes chatty. The conversation reverted back to Aisha and her new study schedule anyway. She says she's studying because she isn't much of a help, which is true, and then she apparently felt dizzy. Her friend tried to call the servants, but Aisha refused, even apologizing with the most innocent of faces. They ask her how hard she's been studying, but she implies it's all to not be a burden to Robellia. She has a talent for gaslighting! Aisha continues on her subtle attack on Robellia, even using the fact that she hired administrative experts against her, as opposed to innocent saint like Aisha who's supposedly burdened by herself. Yucks! Along with the cost, Count Drape says that the Empress's behavior is no less the same when she took care of Marquis Wilhelm, and so the group discusses whether or not Robellia is the right person to be Empress. Count Drape then decides to showcase his supposed expertise in politics. Though he fails to impress the girls, they instead nominate him to voice out their concern to the Emperor himself. He tries to refuse at first, him being new to the court and all, but when Aisha says it will help her out a lot, the Count couldn't even say no. That performance by Aisha is even complete with tears in her eyes. As Count Drape declares his newfound bravery and the ladies praise him for it, in Aisha's mind, she got what she wanted easily. Old women in court wouldn't be swayed easily, but men trying to impress girls? It went as she expected. So much for being innocent, huh? During the next court meeting, Count Drape seems to doubt whether what he promised to do is the right move. Then, like a kid about to do something stupid, the young Count tries to justify his future actions. First, it's because he can't ignore what happened at the tea party. Then, it's because he decided to help his friends. After that, it's because Robellia is a vile empress who brought Aisha to tears, the latter being the most suitable for the empress position. And then he tries to say what he's about to do is for patriotism and loyalty. Geez, pick one! With all that anxiety, Count Drape immediately interrupts the 137th National Assembly as soon as it begins. His uncle quickly calls him, but he refuses to acknowledge it, believing he's grabbing the opportunity to showcase himself. Count Drape, along with 7 other nobles, had written a report and distributed among the court members. Marquis Jocko, his aforementioned uncle, shouts in horror for doing it without his knowledge, but the emperor signals him to stop. Alexandros asks if it truly was Count Drape's and the young noble's opinion on the report. Drape confirms this, so the emperor, with a smile on his face, asks them to continue. Drape takes this as the emperor being interested, so he goes on with confidence. All the while, the other members of the court start pitying him. Count Drape doesn't mind though, as he thinks it's just old jealous men talking. Besides, he's too busy imagining himself climbing up the ranks of the emperor's court. When finished, Alexandros again asks if no one else influenced the Count's opinion. The latter answers yes again, but what comes next is what Count Drape least expected. Alexandros expresses his contention that there's only 7 fools along with Count Drape in his court. First, he tackles their criticism of Robellia attacking Marquis Wilhelm. So Alexandros releases all the documents regarding the Marquise's crimes to the court. He defends Robellia's actions as putting her honor on the line in order to give them the chance to prosecute him. While everyone was praising Robellia's actions, Count Drape has finally begun to realize how grave a mistake he has committed. So he tries to find fault in Robellia's hiring or administrative experts, saying it's a violation of the Empress's duties. Oh, you're digging deeper into a rabbit hole, my friend. Instead of condemning it, Alexandros instead praises Robellia's decision to do so, citing Aisha's terrible control of imperial affairs as reason enough to do so. Fear grips Count Drape completely, and now he gets to experience the Emperor's wrath firsthand. With the matter settled, Alexandros menacingly declares the only discussion left is how to punish the 7 idiots who defamed his Empress. For Count Drape, he would have his tongue cut off. The poor man was dragged away as he begged for forgiveness. And all the while, the woman they slandered, Robellia, is minding her own business, concerned only because there's no news if her divorce proposal was brought up during the National Assembly. Count Drape faces unexpected consequences when he opens his mouth, as an unmerciful Alexandro orders the royal knights to silence him by cutting off his tongue. Count Drape's pleas go unheard. Meanwhile, Aisha, determined to take action, expresses concern over Alexandro's prolonged absence. Cici reassures her that Alexandro is occupied with his duties as emperor. Despite this, Aisha is motivated to contribute something useful to him. Cici suggests she embrace the role of a goddess capable of bringing new wonders to their world. After all, Aisha possesses unique abilities in this regard. Believing that Robellia lacks such powers, Aisha enthusiastically begins preparing to set her plan in motion. All that effort just to take Robellia down? What a waste of talent! Days later, Robellia gets an invitation to Aisha's event promoting world culture, which surprises her as it's not in the original novel's plot. Suspecting Aisha's motives, Robellia is perplexed by frequent encounters with Alexandro. Despite her usual role as a disruptive force, she gladly accepts the invitation. At the event, Aisha, in a knee-length pinkish dress, stands out among the nobles wearing long dresses. Unfazed by discussions, Aisha aims to regain influence in the palace and shines in her speech. In fact, the nobles wouldn't dare to do anything conspicuous because they know who she is. That is, except for one person, Robellia. Robellia captivates attention, even from Alexandro. Despite Aisha's glamorous appearance and confidence, she becomes nervous when shakingly introducing herself, while the nobles are drawn to Robellia. Robellia, in an off-shoulder red dress with a long slit on one side complementing her porcelain skin, outshines Aisha, who is surprised. To make matters worse, Robellia redirects attention to Aisha, who is left speechless with embarrassment. It's like the stage, which was supposed to be all about Aisha, suddenly turns into a surprising show where Robellia steals the spotlight. She's undeniably a girl on fire. Robellia graciously allows Aisha to continue her speech, but Alexandro surprises Aisha by draping his coat over Robellia's knees. Despite Robellia insisting she's not cold, Alexandro is concerned about the attention her exposed skin is drawing from noble men. Aisha, noticing Alexandro's care for Robellia, carries on with her speech. This time, she introduces smartphones, hoping to regain attention. One curious noble asks to try it, and the nobles now think Aisha can create these magical devices, unaware that smartphones are products of science. At this moment, Aisha's focus on herself ends up causing a problem. She just wanted to grab their attention, but the nobles now expect her to be a wizard. Her self-centered plan backfires as the nobles set their expectations too high. Who can blame them when she's the goddess of the empire? It's normal to expect greater things from her. Aisha defends herself that she's just an undergraduate, so she can't make it, betraying everyone's expectations of her. In their kingdom, if one goes to a university, it means that she'll devote her life to knowledge and education. So when Aisha mentioned the university, the nobles expected that she must be able to make smartphones. Robellia, looking at how Aisha panics, orders the nobles to be quiet because the crown princess is struggling. Robellia really knows how to push her deeper into shame. Aisha, determined not to let Robellia steal the spotlight, instructs servants to bring out a dish as a thank you gesture. Despite the dish not being ready, Aisha insists on serving it, believing her carefully prepared buffet will impress everyone. Excitement fills the room, but when the nobles try the foreign food, their expressions turn sour, and some hesitate to eat. Robellia, understanding their discomfort, plans to intervene to prevent the food from going to waste. Aisha is shocked when Robellia steals the spotlight and suddenly wraps up the event using the dish Aisha made. The nobles remain hesitant after the initial taste, denting Aisha's confidence as she sees Alexandro expressing interest in Robellia's cooking. Annoyed, Robellia accepts Alexandro's challenge, warning him it might ruin his taste buds. Surprisingly, he compliments the dish, convincing other nobles to try it again. Despite a lack of traditional ingredients, Robellia's creativity shines. During the tasting party, Aisha leaves to avoid being seen slacking, leaving Robellia to manage the event. Afterward, Alexandro invites Robellia outside the palace. Alert to Alexandro's intentions, Robellia is surprised when he assures her of wanting her as a collaborator and expresses admiration for her cooking skills, which he hadn't known about. Robellia argues that she's always been interested in cooking research. As Alexandro locks his eyes with her, she finds his warm smile fascinating. Despite her initial perception of him as a tyrant fixated on Aisha, seeing him by her side with her hand around his arm makes him appear less terrible. Wondering why Alexandro's behavior deviates from the novel, Robellia dismisses the thought that he hasn't completely fallen for Aisha yet, realizing he'll become a stranger after the divorce. Abruptly, Alexandro interrupts her thoughts, pointing out Robellia flowers in the distance, beautiful and poisonous. Despite Robellia's attempt to dampen the mood, Alexandro's intention was to enjoy the view with the Empress. Robellia challenges him, mentioning the Empress abandoned for 3 years. Alexandro gazes at her, acknowledging his shortcomings in their marriage. Robellia clenches her fist, unwilling to believe that he has truly changed. After all, Alexandro has a huge ego, and his acknowledgement lacks sincerity because there's no apology. But what if she's wrong? Alexandro concedes he could insincerely apologize to avoid the divorce and manipulate her into a political ally, but Robellia wants sincerity. He promises to genuinely apologize one day. Robellia struggles to comprehend, and he encourages her to forget it, dismissing it as nonsense. This makes Robellia suspect that Alexandro might be a sociopath, as all his heartless actions were solely for Aisha, and he lacked feelings for anyone else. He views everyone as beneath him, considering them trash. Despite this, Robellia pretends not to understand what he's saying, suggesting they forget certain memories. This surprises Alexandro, but he grasps that she simply wants to dismiss his words. Robellia openly admits she's not pleased with him, but her nagging has become a familiar presence and it doesn't bother him at all. Suddenly, Alexandro takes a step forward and requests her hand, expressing that it doesn't matter if she believes him or not. He just wants to enjoy the sight of the flowers with her without any ulterior motives. Overwhelmed by his charm, Robellia accepts his hand, but she firmly resolves not to fall for a man already claimed by another woman. She'd rather die than fall in love with him. It's too early to say that. I bet the house on it. That night, Alexandro escorts Robellia to her room, expressing that he had enjoyed the day. In response, Robellia suggests that he should go downstairs and see Aisha since she was the one who hosted the event. Rather than responding verbally, Alexandro delicately takes her hand and plants a kiss on it, casting a seductive gaze at her. Irritated, Robellia withdraws her hand, pointing out that they're on the verge of a divorce, and such gestures are misleading. Alexandro playfully teases her, insisting it's merely how one treats a lady. Another way of saying that there won't be a divorce. Robellia's face flushes, mirroring the fiery hue of her hair. She closes the door behind Alexandro, trying to convince herself that he's just a womanizer who doesn't take loyalty seriously. Unbeknownst to Robellia, behind the closed door, Alexandro grapples with his own confusion. It's as if he's intoxicated, unabashedly indulging in desires without hesitation. Days later, Aisha is even more agitated upon overhearing the servants and nobles talk about how lucky they are to have Robellia as their empress. Of course, it's like a dagger stabbing her, who can't even work on a single document. Cece, her worried servant, tries to comfort her since she hasn't eaten for 2 days. However, even that didn't work. When Cece closes the door, Aisha still keeps thinking why Robellia had the idea to make Korean dishes when she's lived in the kingdom her whole life. What are the chances that she can create a dish that is exactly the same from a totally different world, right? If for some reason Robellia knows about Korean culture, Aisha's weighing the possibility that Robellia also comes from Korea. However, there must be an oracle if the goddess passes through. The chances that the mentality and the memories of the people in the kingdom are reversed are just too low. It's most probably that Robellia overheard and learned Korean culture from somewhere. Still, that remains unanswerable because the only contact between the two worlds is the goddess who comes from the other world to spread new culture and help others. So it's impossible that only Robellia knows it and others don't. Aisha covers her face with her trembling hands, realizing how her relationship with Alexandro got so messed up, not to mention the social status she's worked so hard for. Clutching the bed sheets tightly, she struggles to comprehend how Robellia acquired the information. If Robellia becomes a significant threat, everything Aisha has worked for could crumble. On the other hand, Robellia revels in the attention during her visit to Lamancha Street. This area resembles a black market, where both legal and illegal trade thrives. Although not a fitting place for an empress, it serves as the perfect spot for Robellia to acquire certain suspicious items. Despite feeling sorry for the Guardians, she has no choice but to spend all her money in this black market, risking disgrace to the imperial family, potentially leading to their divorce. Hours later, Robellia realizes the gravity of her impulsive actions. Originally intending to use her money on suspicious magical items like cursed dolls, she ends up making an unexpected purchase of intimate products from the last store. I can't imagine when Alexandros finds out about this. Just thinking of his reaction makes me want to laugh out loud. At this point, everyone will think she's buying stuff for Alexandros. Just then, her attention diverts to a commotion. Robellia's eyes widen at the sight in front of her, an auction featuring expensive and extraordinary items. Excited, she urges her royal knights to hurry, hoping to find something spectacular that could help expedite her divorce. However, much to her shock, the auction turns out to be centered around slaves. These prisoners of war are considered legal under the Empire's slave law, though it's uncommon for nobles to buy foreign war slaves due to ethical considerations. Robellia recalls a character from the novel who had a slave background. As the announcer introduces an 18-year-old girl named Banya, the bidding starts at 50,000. The young girl flinches and trembles as she's objectified simply for reaching adulthood. As the bidding continues, Robellia becomes increasingly disturbed by the sight of the poor girl being treated as a commodity. At that moment, Robellia steps forward and commands everyone to return home. As the Empress, her orders cannot be refused. The announcer warns of a considerable loss if she persists, but Robellia's intense gaze silences any further objections. To settle the matter, she hands him a check to acquire ownership of all the slaves. However, a new dilemma arises. The slaves lack basic knowledge, and releasing them would lead to starvation. Moreover, if a person with ill intent discovers their status, they might be enslaved again. To address this, Robellia makes a life-altering decision. She declares herself the master of the slaves, and they will now work in the palace to assist her. Meanwhile, in the palace, Alexandros seeks confirmation regarding Robellia's presence in Lamancha Street. His secretary is troubled by the Emperor's habit of inquiring about the Empress's whereabouts. But Alexandros' concern is more about Robellia's unawareness of the area's dangers. Determined to ensure her safety, he decides to go there himself. Holy moly, I need water, he's so hot! It's 45 degrees outside! The royal guards express opposition to Robellia's decision to let the slaves reside in the imperial palace with her. They argue that the palace is exclusively for individuals of a particular noble status in the empire. Robellia, however, stands firm in her decision, declaring it irrevocable. She asserts that she will take full responsibility for her choice and goes a step further, instructing that the slaves receive 3 hours of education daily on the imperial language, society, law, and basic studies. Banya, with a shaky voice, expresses gratitude to Robellia for giving them a chance to live. Robellia is taken aback, but soon realizes the immense fear the slaves must have felt. Slaves like her never knew where to go and what danger they'd face. All of them are adults, so it should be alright to teach them for about a year. After that, she will give them enough funds to live alone and become independent. Despite her eccentric behavior, there's still kindness inside of her, especially towards those who are oppressed. We stan the right queen. Suddenly, a man whips another slave for moving too slowly, callously remarking that he'd rather offer the child as food to monsters since they are all the same. Witnessing the cruelty, especially towards a child, Robellia knows she cannot stand idly by. Robellia shouts at the man to stop hurting the child and questions why there's one left if she purchased all of them. The man explains that the boy belongs to the auction house and isn't for sale, mainly because one of his legs is limp, making him less marketable. Still, Robellia declares her intention to buy the child and demands the whip. Oblivious, the man hands her the whip, and Robellia uses it to strike him, giving him a taste of his own medicine. She sternly lectured him that even if he's a slave, he shouldn't be cruel to a child. The man, paralyzed by fear and impact, can barely move. Warned by Robellia that she won't hesitate to strike him again, the man hastily retreats to save himself, leaving Robellia satisfied with the outcome. Proud of herself, Robellia is convinced that this incident will surely lead to her getting a divorce, and she anticipates an agenda to depose her. Unexpectedly, the boy speaks up, expressing gratitude. He acknowledges that his body is not in the best condition, but promises to dedicate his life to repaying the favor. Just then, Robellia recognizes the boy. If she's not mistaken, he's Caleb, the sub-male lead from the original novel. Contrary to his innocent and good-natured impression, there was a dark side to Caleb. He had been a slave from birth because his parents were prisoners of war, but he was self-taught and rose to the level of a 7th Circle Archmage. With his outstanding magic talent, he made a great contribution and shed his status as a slave. After that, he set up an information guild. In the novel, he had a crush on Aisha and used the guild to help her a lot. However, Robellia struggles to fathom meeting Caleb under these circumstances. She examines his face, holding both of his cheeks to verify if he is indeed the Caleb from the story. Although he should be 16 now, he appears undersized and malnourished, displaying more timid personality than the original novel. Caleb's face reddens as he becomes bewildered by the Empress's weird behavior. At that moment, Alexandros arrives and inquires coldly about what Robellia is doing. Robellia signals annoyance with a raised eyebrow, avoiding his question and instead asking what brings him to La Mancha Street. She speculates that he might be angry about the Empress visiting a black market. Proudly, she suggests he might scold her or even expel her from the palace. Alexandros remains silent on that matter and instead asks about Caleb. Robellia discloses that he is one of the 30 slaves she purchased. Alexandros persists, questioning why she attempted to kiss the boy. Oh, he's so jealous, huh? Robellia clearly didn't expect that kind of nonsense. She exclaims that she just looked at his wounds and that she isn't shameless enough to kiss a child. For some reason, Alexandros feels relieved upon hearing that. Alexandros admits that he's glad nothing happened. Well, it would be weird if rumor had it that the Empress touched a child, so Robellia assures him that it's not like that. Alexandros, on the other hand, doesn't understand what she's talking about. He's just jealous, Robellia. He can fool anyone, but not us. Then, Alexandros makes it clear that he's not angry with her for everything she did in La Mancha Street. He leans closer and whispers that he is, in fact, the owner of the street. Right after he ascended the throne, he bought the entire street with his slush fund to keep the border between legal and illegal under surveillance. He places his hand on her shoulder and tells her that only a few people know about it, including his secretary. And now, he's disclosing this matter to her because it's her, and she will soon know what it means. This is so low-key romantic! I'm so close to forgiving how much of a red flag he is. However, Robellia clearly understood what he meant. There's no fool in the world who tells such a secret to his soon-to-be-divorced wife. His confession is an expression of his will to never divorce, while simultaneously expressing confidence that it's definitely not going to happen. Now that she knows his secret, it means that whether she wants to or not, she will be more deeply involved with him, and she doesn't feel good because she thinks she got tricked. Alexandros is so cunning, but we love him. That night, Caleb's intention is still the same. He wants to become her direct escort knight. Robellia warns him that becoming a knight is more dangerous than he thinks, so she asks him to find something more suitable for him. Robellia wants to give him a proper job since he's a talented child, but cleaning or carrying things is tiring with an injured leg. Just then, Caleb admits that he's born with a bit of magical powers. He just kept it hidden since he's afraid that his ability might be used for dangerous things. But disclosing it with Robellia just shows that he's willing to protect her with his powers. So, Robellia offers to let him work at the Research Academy to learn more about magic and to enhance his ability. But Caleb begs her not to send him there. He was bullied by his peers when he was younger, so he's afraid to socialize with others. Robellia can't believe that he got bullied, since in the original novel, he got revenge on the bullies. Robellia wonders if it's because he's still timid because of how young he is. Caleb, at this point, begs her to use him instead of abandoning him no matter the cost. Robellia has no choice but to agree to his request. She's planning to keep him for about a year anyway. With relief, Caleb is so glad that he can become her guardian knight, further expressing that it's the happiest moment of his meaningless life. Robellia points out that he shouldn't call his life meaningless because there's always a meaning behind every living creature. Suddenly, Caleb stands and approaches Robellia, saying that he will dedicate his body and soul to her, and if he has anything, even if it's a thread, he will give it all to her. He then proceeds to kiss her feet, but Robellia is getting uncomfortable as to how cheesy he is. Robellia warns him not to swear like that again because he will stain the clothes she gave to him. Meanwhile, in his office, Alexandros is bothered by Caleb's presence. He's been a thorn in his eyes, but he can't let anything affect his relationship with Robellia no matter how much it bothers him. On top of that, he found out the list of embarrassing things that Robellia bought. The part where she purchased such intimate products bothers him more. As expected, his reaction is priceless. Now what will he do next? I can't keep track of how many times I reviewed the last part of chapter 24.5, and I know you guys did the same. Alexandros' thoughts are everywhere. Robellia being spotted in La Mancha Street would mean bribing everyone, both witnesses and the media, to maintain their silence. But honestly, that's the least of his worries because right now, he's more concerned about Robellia's purchases. A million questions go through his head. Why did she purchase adult toys? Does she plan to use it for herself, or does it mean they'd be getting intimate soon enough? At one point, Alexandros snaps himself out of it. No way they could be intimate with each other when all Robellia does is demand for a divorce 24/7. Exhaling a deep breath, he marches to her room, realizing that it'd be better just to ask her about it than jump to conclusions. On his way there, he finds himself getting his hopes up, but they're soon crushed when he reaches her room and overhears a strange conversation. Robellia is talking with that slave, and she's saying her purchases and recent orders were for him? Sir, relax. It's not the purchases that you think. Unable to take it, Alexandros swings the door open, barging into Robellia's room without warning. With a storm in his eyes, he confronts both Robellia and Caleb, but Robellia is having none of his drama. Although Caleb apologizes for the misunderstanding, Robellia comes to his defense, reprimanding Alexandros for insinuating that something inappropriate is going on between them. To her, it's ridiculous that he'd even speculate someone as innocent as Caleb. One thing's for sure, though. Alexandros hates Caleb, so he sends him out immediately. Left alone, Robellia urges Alexandros to cut to the chase. It's obvious he wouldn't come into her room without ulterior motives. No doubt, it's to persuade her into working with him again. Unfortunately for him, she still has no plans of doing such a thing. In response, Alexandros only smirks, mischief in his eyes. The more she rejects him, the more he desires her. Putting on her most serious face, she gives him an earful, warning him to be more careful around her. However, he pushes her advice aside, diverting the topic to something else. He wants to know what to do to make her happy. Once more, she reminds him that all she wants is a divorce. But to her dismay, he places a kiss on her hand as he declines, saying that it's the one thing he can't do. In fact, he'd rather kiss her feet and beg than give her a divorce. This flusters Robellia, and she snatches her hand from his grip almost instantly, a blush creeping on her cheeks. She tells him to stop his act because deep down, she knows that he doesn't care for her at all. But Alexandros is determined to prove her wrong. He pins her down on the mattress, planting soft kisses on her hair. Just when she's about to object, he closes the distance between them, crashing his lips into hers. A moment later, Robellia strikes, slapping him with full force and ordering him to leave. Without another word, Alexandros apologizes, albeit timidly. Outside, he clasps his mouth in disbelief. He totally let his emotions get the best of him. Alexandros feels his cheeks heating up. Who knew kissing Robellia would have this much of an effect on him? Come to think of it, their marriage was only a marriage of convenience. But these past few days, it's been different. Or at least for him. For some reason, just the thought of Robellia being with another man enrages Alexandros. Thinking hard, the pieces all click for him. He's starting to want more from their relationship of convenience. Clutching his own heart, it all begins to sink in for Alexandros. He desires Robellia and her talents. But in order to keep things as they are, he knows better than to keep clinging on to their kiss, even though it pains him to act like something so wonderful never happened between them. The following morning, Robellia thrashes around her room, kicking her feet up and down as she reminisces the kiss she and Alexandros shared last night. Flushing a deep red, she trembles as she admits to herself that she actually enjoyed it, albeit only for a second. This puts Robellia in a crisis. Her high and mighty pride is crumbling down. All of a sudden, a maid barges into her room, relaying a message from Alexandros. Apparently, Alexandros wants to see her right away, and he won't take no for an answer. Robellia can't believe his audacity, and she wants to object so badly. But she knows that if she refuses, the maid is in for big trouble. So ever the empath, she agrees to meet with Alexandros, only for her maid's sake. Girl, you could have at least changed and fixed your appearance. Robellia's prompt arrival amuses Alexandros, but when he turns around, he's stunned. She looks fresh from bed with her disheveled hair. Alexandros begins patronizing her, but she's in no mood to indulge him. Without delay, she urges him to get straight to the point. To her surprise, he apologizes for kissing her last night. Her eyes widen as he continues with his apology. The Emperor, Alexandros, apologizing sincerely? Who would have thought such a thing could be possible? Robellia tried so hard to forget about their kiss, so she feels her cheeks burning up when he brings it up. However, she can't look too affected. Trying her best to regain her composure, she begins berating Alexandros for his behavior. One unfit for the son of the Empire. Robellia argues that kissing her was unnecessary. Plus, shouldn't Aisha be enough to satisfy him? Alexandros is appalled at her last statement. He then makes a striking confession. He's never kissed anyone before, let alone be intimate with anyone. Seeing Robellia's shocked face, he laughs uncontrollably, realizing she had assumed he and Aisha were being intimate behind her back. Initially, Robellia finds it hard to believe him, but when he swears over Mastapo, the Sea of Fire, she then realizes he's telling the truth. Robellia can no longer hide how flustered she is, especially when she realizes that was both their first kiss. With nothing left to discuss, she excuses herself shortly, leaving Alexandros alone. To be honest, Alexandros enjoys how expressive Robellia is with her reactions, so much so that he wants to seduce her into becoming his collaborator. The following days, Robellia begins causing more trouble, hopefully to provoke the media in writing defaming articles about her. If all goes well, Alexandros might even be forced to give her a divorce. Unfortunately, the articles never came, and Robellia is certain that Alexandros played a hand in the media silence. Now, Robellia feels hopeless. When she gets divorced, all she's allowed to take are her dresses and jewelries, things she plans to sell in order to afford herself a comfortable residence when she's no longer the Empress. But still, she can't be too laid back. Money will run out eventually, and she'll have to work to make ends meet. Ever the clever one, she decides that it'd be best to befriend some notable figures in the business field as early as now. Like they say, the early bird gets the worm. Meanwhile, Alexandros receives news from his secretary, Robert. It turns out Robellia has gotten rid of all the adult toys she purchased. But that's not the important bit. Robert tells Alexandros of an internal issue they're facing, one concerning the slaves Robellia had brought in. Apparently, they're working harder and better than the palace servants, and because of this, Robellia's been gaining more support. Everyone's praising her for scouting such talented individuals, unaware of their slave backgrounds. Outside, Banya, one of the slave-turned-maids, can't help but feel happy for helping boost Robellia's reputation. She tells Caleb that she's even more motivated to keep working hard, as long as it's for Robellia's sake. But when she mentions something about extra service, especially during the nighttime, Caleb is instantly intrigued. That night, a palace staff asks Robellia if he should send Caleb into her room. Apparently, he assumed that Caleb was Robellia's plaything, if you know what I mean. This upsets Robellia. Although she wanted her reputation tarnished, she doesn't want to drag innocent people into her business, and that includes Caleb and the other slaves. Later that night, Caleb pays Robellia a visit, eagerly updating her about his progress in his studies. He even invites her to observe him in class, just to check on his improvements. The invitation warms Robellia's heart, but she makes sure to tell Caleb not to seek validation and approval from her. She's already proud of him as is. This saddens Caleb. He's already been feeling down lately, fearing that he isn't of much use to Robellia. With that, he then offers himself to her, ready to provide her with special services. He knows that Robellia isn't the type of person who'd ask that of him, but still, he wants to repay her kindness in any way he can. Cupping his hand on the back of her head, he leans in close, determined to kiss Robellia. What? Caleb, that isn't appropriate at all! In one quick motion, Robellia rejects his advances, blocking his face with a book. Although Caleb insists, she dares to stop him, chastising him for his actions and advising him to save it for someone he'll love in the future. When Caleb leaves, he can't help but remark how he flunked such a great opportunity. But he's caught in a pinch when Alexandros hears it and confronts him. Alexandros is in no mood to be lenient with Caleb right now. Upon finding out that he's been in Robellia's chambers yet again and how he harbors hidden feelings towards her, Alexandros feels more unsettled by the minute. Fury burns in his eyes as he reprimands Caleb for betraying Robellia's trust. How could someone like him come to fall and harbor indecent thoughts about his wife? Hearing this, Caleb keeps his head down, guilty of everything Alexandros has just called him out for. But persistent as ever, Caleb dares to talk back, insisting that he'll stay by Robellia's side as her guard. This only worsens Alexandros' mood, and he warns Caleb to stay out of his sight, something Caleb finds difficult to do. The morning after, Aisha fumes with rage when her assistant informs her that there's no dirt to be found about the Empress Robellia. Not everyone is as rotten to the core as you, Aisha. This irritates her greatly because she is sure that Robellia has some kind of connection to another world. Modern-day Korea, to be exact. The law dictates that any information about other worlds should be shared with the public. So if Robellia is keeping such information a secret, then it's a grave offense. Something that Aisha is determined to expose. After all, only her, Aisha the Saintess, is supposed to have knowledge about other worlds. She lashes out at her assistant for being useless, but then he offers her juicy rumors. Aisha is immediately invested. Apparently, he's found out that the servants Robellia brought are actually slaves she purchased from an auction. This makes Aisha wonder why the media is silent about it. Could it be Robellia's doing? Flashing a devious smile, Aisha sets the scheme in motion. That night, Aisha's assistant carries out her orders. According to Aisha, he has to mail whatever she writes to the media. The more scandalous their stories become, the better. Nobles may try to act like saints, but Aisha knows better than that. They too indulge themselves in vulgar gossip. Aisha may be beautiful, but I can't say the same for her personality. The following day, everything goes exactly as Aisha plans. News about Robellia frequenting La Mancha Street makes headlines across different newspapers, earning her the public's disapproval. Yet unbeknownst to Aisha, the stories spiral out of control. William Borner, the editor of Weekend Opinion, insinuates that Robellia might actually be meeting with her lover in La Mancha. Of course, he knows it isn't true, but anything for more sales, right? Back at the palace, Robellia's maid, Casey, catches wind of the erupting rumors surrounding her mistress. She may be overstepping, but she does everything she can to reassure Robellia, making sure she doesn't take the people's backlash to heart. Robellia doesn't react, only asking for space in the meantime. When she's alone behind closed doors, Robellia begins to celebrate. She's been waiting for this for a while now. Finally, a scandal that might get her kicked out of the palace. However, there's one tiny problem. Everyone is accusing her of a secret lover. If word gets out, they might try to pin Caleb as the culprit. Heck, the public might even target the other slaves as objects of their backlash. Robellia is forced to remain cautious. She doesn't want to drag anyone down with her. The following day, Alexandros conducts an urgent press conference, and he demands Robellia to be present at the meeting. Of course, Robellia isn't too keen on it, but she's not one to back down either. Who knows, he might give her the divorce she's long been asking for. Confident, she asks Casey to help her prepare. At the Grand Hall, Alexandros and his officials arrive, prompting the press and media to bombard them with questions, even asking about a potential separation between the two monarchs. Alexandros isn't fazed. He even looks cocky and confident, but still, he beckons them to wait for the Empress before he answers questions. Like clockwork, Robellia arrives, but she's dressed in the flashiest and most revealing clothes, leaving the officials horrified with her inappropriate attire. She takes her seat right next to Alexandros, but what she doesn't expect is for him to match her haughtiness. Ooh, I just know he has something up his sleeve. Without further delay, Alexandros begins the meeting with an announcement that leaves everyone stunned. He announces that he was the one who ordered Robellia to visit La Mancha Street. But the cherry on top? He reveals that he owns La Mancha Street and the Grey Market. The crowd erupts into chaos, visibly perplexed about the Emperor's revelations. Journalists begin scribbling down their notes while officials whisper among themselves. As for Robellia, she's shocked as to why Alexandros is covering up for her and clearing her name. Finally, Alexandros speaks once again, telling everyone that the reason for his revelations are because he doesn't want anyone to sully the Empress's name. Robellia stares daggers at Alexandros, truly aggravated by his intervention. All of a sudden, William Borner speaks up, daring to publicize and question Robellia about the adult toys she purchased. Were those the Emperor's orders too? This irritates Robellia. It's obvious that this man is trying to humiliate her publicly. Unexpectedly, Alexandros answers the question for her. He thinks that it's ridiculous that people are assuming the Empress has a secret lover. He then hints that the adult toys are for their use as a couple. Alexandros, you're getting cheekier as the story progresses. I wonder what Aisha has to say about that. The crowd's eyes widen in disbelief, including William's. They never knew their monarchs shared a good relationship, much more an intimate one. Even Robellia is shocked and embarrassed, and she grits her teeth as she faces Alexandros. She's about to give him an earful, but when he tells her to play along for the sake of her beloved slaves and staff, she immediately obliges. She can't deny that Alexandros totally figured out her weakness. She doesn't want those dear to her being involved in this drama. Left with no choice, she affirms all of Alexandros' claims, including his claims of having a steamy night together. Everyone is in awe of their openness and public display of affection, except for William, who's annoyed. His plans of escalating the issue for more newspaper sales totally failed. Although the conference ended on a good note, there were still some rumors circulating about her supposed great relationship with Alexandros. Disappointing, but definitely not surprising. It doesn't matter, though, because Robellia can only worry about the welfare of the slaves she's brought to the palace. And speaking of which, Caleb finds himself the object of the palace's staff's ire. They begin tormenting Caleb, beating him up and showcasing a power trip against him just because of his slave origins. Caleb lets them be. He won't get angry, but he'll definitely get even. The following day, Caleb's bully, Viscount Maine's only son, finds himself in an accident. His horse had suddenly gone wild, causing him to fall off from it and hurt his leg. People say that the horse was probably bitten by something. The culprit? A rogue rat, one that comes running back to its master, Caleb. As for his bully, due to his limp, no knight order has accepted him. Oh, he has a cruel and devious side to him. I kinda like it. Satisfied with his revenge, Caleb can only smile as he makes his way back to the palace. Meanwhile, Banya isn't having much luck either. Just like Caleb, she finds herself being bullied by the palace maids. Out of nowhere, the Empress arrives and comes to her defense. As Robellia calls the maids out, they all break a sweat in fear of her wrath. The maids try to justify their actions, claiming that they only acted out of loyalty to the imperial family. To them, slaves would only contaminate the palace and breathe the same air as royals. In a firm voice, Robellia reprimands them. How dare they challenge her judgment and question her authority? Seething, Robellia expresses her disdain for them, leaving the maids begging for forgiveness. If anyone is caught bullying her servants, Robellia warns them that she won't be so lenient the next time around. From beside her, Banya watches with awe, touched by Robellia's actions. As Robellia leaves, Banya chases after her, expressing her gratitude. Not wanting to seem like she's favoring anybody, Robellia tells Banya not to give too much meaning into her actions. She merely did it to teach those mean girls a lesson. But instead of feeling sad, Robellia finds Banya staring at her with more awe. The fact that Robellia knows her name is enough to make Banya pledge her loyalty to her, something that Robellia totally didn't expect. Over the next few days, more and more servants are amazed by Robellia's kindness. As a result, Robellia's reputation once again soars. Robellia reflects on everything lately. Nothing she does earns her the people's negative views. In fact, it's the opposite. Well, that just proves how good-natured she is. One day, all this will pass, and maybe soon she'll finally enjoy a happy life. Probably in her own garden with a dog and cat. Her thoughts are cut short, though, when a special guest pays her a visit. Alexandros. He wants Robellia to attend the Friday banquet. Robellia deadpans and flat-out declines his request. To her surprise, he already expected her response. According to Alexandros, it would be in Robellia's best interest to attend the banquet. After all, she wouldn't want rumors of her secret lover to resurface and potentially endanger Caleb and the other slaves. All Alexandro asks is for Robellia's presence. He'll take care of everything else. Robellia scowls, annoyed at his scheming, but she's in no position to refuse. Pleased with her wise decision, Alexandros plants a gentle kiss on her hand. But he should know that this is the last time Robellia is putting up with him. On the day of the banquet, everyone is astonished to see Robellia. Though it's not just her presence that catches them off guard, but the way she's dressed. It's elegant and modest, totally different from her flashy and inappropriate outfits. It turns out, her maids had dressed her up differently from what she wanted. She's about to tell them off, but they explain that they did it out of goodwill. They didn't want the public to diss their mistress again. To be honest, Robellia didn't expect the guests to gawk at her new style. Their stares irritate her, but her annoyance is cut short when someone approaches, daring to introduce and hype himself up to her. Soon enough, other gentlemen follow suit, harassing her with introductions about themselves and their respective houses. Just because she's dressed modestly doesn't mean they're allowed to treat her like some common lady. Feeling uncomfortable, she evades them and tries to leave the room. But just then, Alexandros arrives and pulls her close to him. She stiffens under his tight grip on her waist, her body pressed against his wall-like chest. Robellia gets mad at him for being late to the banquet. Though it was just minutes away from starting, Robellia is still pissed at him. Alexandros reassures her that everything will be fine. He'll deal with everything and everyone himself, including those who'll try to ruin the banquet for Robellia. Meanwhile, Aisha also arrives late to the banquet, wearing the usual but extravagant dress of a noblewoman. She compares her attire to that of Robellia's style. Her goal? To please and gain everyone's favor. As Aisha makes her way to the banquet hall, people begin to compliment her looks. But she notices that something is not quite right. The crowd's attention is elsewhere. Her suspicions get the best of her, and when she breaks through the crowd, she is stunned by what she witnesses. It's Alexandros and Robellia being intimate, almost kissing each other's lips. Rage boils within her, and she hurriedly leaves the scene, clearly hurt. Later on, Robellia and Alexandros cease their public display of affection, but people could hardly tell that it was just an act. Everyone's convinced that the two share a close relationship. In Aisha's quarters, she lashes out, trashing her room as she throws a tantrum. She acts like a madwoman, questioning the events of late. Alexandros is supposed to be hers in this story. Talk about obsessed. Girl, you got better things to worry about. What is supposed to be hers is lost in a matter of time. Alexandros is defying all odds by becoming obsessed with Robellia. Aisha now sees Robellia as a threat. It's almost like the story shifted ever since Robellia changed her attitude towards Alexandros. Desperate for power, Aisha becomes hell-bent on eliminating Robellia from the picture. Her reasoning grows vague as she tries to validate her own feelings about her place in the palace. She blames Robellia for her miserable life and plans to expose all of her misfortunes. She convinces herself that she's the reasonable one, believing that what she's doing is all to restore order and uphold what she thinks is right. She's the saintess after all, so she's doing this out of duty. She believes that by doing so, she'll be able to reclaim Alexandros and his love. Determined to bring Robellia down, she then sets her plan in motion. The following day, Aisha meets with the nobles she trusts most. One of them speaks about the ongoing reconstruction of the palace and Robellia's rejection of Alexandros' gifts. She's very hostile towards Robellia, so one can only assume that she hates the Empress. In the middle of it all, Aisha sits comfortably with a cat on her lap, maintaining a graceful demeanor while others hurl criticisms at Robellia. Duke Schwarzkopf is also present. While the nobles speak ill of Robellia, he only remains silent. The Duke is known to be indebted to Aisha, so everyone automatically assumes that he'll join in on slandering Robellia. But he proves them wrong when he quietly prepares to leave the meeting, clearly uncomfortable with how things are unfolding. Before he exits, he leaves Aisha with words of wisdom. If she surrounds herself with wicked-minded people, their corruption may spread and infect others, including herself. That was definitely a backhanded comment. It's obviously suggesting that Aisha reflect on her current circle. Aisha only smiles in response, but inwardly, she feels no warmth. In fact, given his current personality, she plans to tame him. Robellia is awoken by the maids, urging her to read the newspaper and its headlines. It details how she bought and brought slaves to the imperial palace. This alarms her, especially since she did her best to protect them from getting caught in between her own affairs. The maids can't help but cry in front of her. Given the fact that she's been generous and kind, they think she doesn't deserve to be criticized like this. Robellia eyes Casey's tears, her heart feeling a pang of guilt and pity. Not once had she ever had someone care for her as much as Casey and her maids do. She can't bear seeing them sad for her. Trying to reassure them, she reminds them that all this backlash directed towards her will ultimately bring her closer to her goal: to get divorced from Alexandros. She tells them that she can't be happy so long as she's with the Emperor, so how could she find joy in staying with someone who doesn't even love her? It's clear that Alexandros only has eyes for Aisha. That's something she can't change. After all, at the end of the day, he and Aisha are still the novel's main characters. Just then, a maid shares one of her wishes, one she hopes Robellia would grant. In the event she finds out that Alexandros actually does love her, she should revoke wanting to get divorced. Hearing this, Robellia smiles and agrees. But when she swears over Mustapo, the maids realize just how serious she is. On the other hand, Aisha meets with Duchess Selimon, and it seems that the Duchess is trembling in fear of something. I wonder what Aisha said to her. It turns out Aisha has made the meeting's topic clear, bringing down Robellia by swaying public opinion. However, Duchess Selimon holds reservations. She does not wish to be caught as the perpetrator of rumors against the Empress. Confidently, Aisha reassures her that it's not rumors, it's the truth, and she wants the Duchess to remind everyone of it, how the Empress brought 30 slaves into the palace. Ever so manipulative, she explains her plan in detail, leaving no room for the Duchess's refusal. Left with no choice, Duchess Selimon agrees, her voice faint and weak. She then excuses herself shortly, leaving Aisha alone with her thoughts. As an imperial consort vying for the Emperor's love and attention, all Aisha can think about is how to ruin Robellia. She recalls 5 conditions for an empress to be deposed, from murder and compromising the country's security to being ousted by the people. Aisha combs through each condition, choosing which one to accuse Robellia of first. There's one problem, though. Alexandros is wrapped around Robellia's finger, so there's no way he'd dethrone her. Realizing this, she's enraged, vowing to take everything away from Robellia. All the while, a butterfly flutters by her window as she pours out her heart planning Robellia's downfall. Little does she know that it acted as a magical spy, reporting everything back to Caleb. Caleb is amused to learn about Aisha's plans. He always knew her kindness was a facade. Smirking, he's excited to give Aisha a taste of her own medicine, ready to catch her in a trap she herself had set. Days later, an event is held and Aisha makes her appearance, all dressed up with her mask of kindness plastered on her face. Apparently, Aisha is the one hosting the event and she's made sure to invite nobles from far and near. Her goal? To show off how competent she is, not just in hosting parties, but in becoming the future empress as well. A familiar man is present, Duke Norman Schwarzkopf. Word has it that the Schwarzkopf lineage is an evil bloodline because of their residence in the northern lands, a place where monsters lurk. The current Duke, Norman, was sent to the capital and became Aisha's friend. Since only Aisha talks to him, naturally, he only ever opens up to her as well. Cutting through the crowd's noise, Aisha announces that the party is about to begin, and so she prepares a performance for everyone. She makes her way to the piano, where she then starts playing melodic tunes that earn her everyone's praise. All they can do is wonder how she learned to play the piano so well. Unbeknownst to them, Aisha has been playing the piano since she was young. Even though it's been a while, she's amazed by how she still manages to play so well. Step 1 of her plan begins here. She wants to impress everyone with her skills, and what better way to do it than by doing something she's already a master in? As her first piece ends, she offers to play another, specifically a concerto called The Mask. But as confident as she is, her hands freeze when a familiar voice reverberates throughout the room. It's her conversation with Duchess Salomon being played on a record player in full volume. All the things they had discussed and talked about, even her solo monologue, are exposed to everyone. Aisha trembles as the recording continues playing. Desperate to stop this madness, she runs towards the record player, throwing it to the ground and breaking it into pieces. Aisha's breath comes in shaky gasps as the shattered recorder lies at her feet. The audio has stopped, but it's too late. All of the people at the party have already heard it. All eyes remain fixated on her. Their stares make her break into a nervous chuckle as she tries to pull herself out of the situation. As this unfolds, Norman only stares at her, unmoving and unwilling to help, making sure Aisha realizes that she should be accountable for her own actions. Finally, Norman approaches, breaking the deafening silence in the room. But when he speaks, it's to express his disappointment in her. All along, he thought Aisha was a good person. Hearing this, Aisha tries to play the victim, trying to turn the tables that she was only framed and set up. Knowing he goes soft on her when she cries, Aisha breaks down in tears, begging him to take her side. Unexpectedly, he only looks at her in disgust, revealing that such a recording couldn't have been tampered with because it's a magical device used by the imperial family for security. The Duke leaves the party as Aisha stands frozen on her feet, clenching her fists in anger. She can't believe what just happened, and she tries to come up with some assumptions as to who's the culprit behind such a stunt. Behind her, Caleb stands in silent pride over his triumph. Oh, how sweet his revenge is! Soon enough, news of the incident spread far and wide, reaching Robellia's ears in no time. Just when she wonders who could have exposed Aisha, her maids announce the arrival of a guest who has come to see Robellia. Robellia can only guess who it is. None other than the Emperor Alexandros. Bold as ever, he barges into her room before she can come up with an excuse not to see him. Although Robellia feels slighted, there's very little she can do now. Since he's there, she might as well discuss something with him. Wasting no time, she asks him what he knows about the culprit who sabotaged Aisha at her own party. Alexandros is bewildered at her question. Obviously, he didn't expect her to be curious about such a thing, but still, he answers her. Apparently, in Aisha's study, they found traces of magic used for eavesdropping. But as for traces of the culprit, none were found, intensifying Robellia's curiosity. Suddenly, Alexandros states his verdict on how Aisha will be punished. He plans to put Aisha on probation for 3 months and cut her budget. Unexpectedly, Robellia doesn't agree with his decision. In fact, she wishes that Aisha wouldn't be punished at all. After all, her actions helped ruin Robellia's reputation, inching her closer and closer to a divorce. Hearing this, Alexandros is hurt. Not for himself, but for Robellia's sake. Try as she might, Alexandros knows all those rumors still have a toll on her. With sincerity, he hopes that she receives help and comfort when she's hurt, even if it's not from him. Robellia can't deny that Alexandros' concern makes her want to melt, but she knows better than to be swayed by his words. Frustrated, she confronts him directly. If he really cared for her like what he says, then how did he manage to neglect her for the past 3 years? For goodness sake, she just wants to stop letting him hurt her. Yes, Robellia, make a stand! Looking back on her life in Korea, she was just a regular office worker with little to no social life. Every time someone tried to ask her out, she ignored them because she became skeptical of their compliments. However, Robellia's character is a different case. She's someone who became obsessed in wanting Alexandros' eyes to remain only on her. Now that she inhibits Robellia, she finds her own values clashing with Robellia's. It's probably why sometimes she feels so drawn to believe Alexandros. It must be Robellia's own emotions fighting to steer and drive her body. As for Alexandros, he faces an internal crisis. Reflecting back on everything, he is hesitant about responding to Robellia because in the end, he knows she'll lose trust in him. Honestly, all Alexandros wants is for Robellia to smile at him like she does for others. When it comes to Robellia, he's just lost. If it were any other person, he could fake an apology in a snap, but he doesn't want to do that to Robellia. While Alexandros sorts out his conflicted thoughts, Robellia interrupts him, snapping him back to their conversation. Alexandros, out of the blue, proposes a favor. He wants her to give him a second chance. This time, for sure, he'll cherish her and give her everything she wants. Except for a divorce, of course. Robellia's reaction gradually changes, switching from despair to fluster. But still, she remains firm in her decision. Despite his pleas and offers, she still wants to have a divorce. Straightforwardly, she tells him that the life that will make her happy is apart from him. If Robellia stays by Alexandros' side, she could have everything. But power and money aren't the endgame for her. What about finding someone who actually cares for her genuinely? Alexandros is on edge this time. He can't lose her, so he does something outrageous, even for someone of his character. Without influence or prompt, and with Robellia as his witness, he swears over Mustapo never to let her go. As long as he draws breath, Alexandros will never allow her to separate from him. And if he does, he'll gladly burn the sea of fire for breaking his word. Surely, Robellia would see just how desperate he is to keep her. He doesn't even care what she does as long as she stays by his side. He then excuses himself shortly, leaving a shocked Robellia to question everything that just happened. Hours after that meeting, Robellia sits in a corner thinking that all her plans have been for naught. Suddenly, Casey cuts her thoughts short when she brings up a topic about donations. This month, Robellia plans to donate to a library, hospital, and orphanage. Apparently, nobles would rather spend on luxuries than donate to the poor, which leaves Robellia to take it upon herself to support such causes. At some point, the topic shifts from donations to her recent meeting with Alexandros. Driven by emotions, she tells Casey and Caleb about how he swore over Mustapo, leaving them equally as shocked. Robellia knows that Alexandros didn't do it for love. Instead, it was out of an obsession to keep her tied to him. Probably the only way to truly escape him is to run away, although it would be difficult for her since the palace has high security. But it's worth a shot. She can't escape on her own, so she needs someone outside the palace, someone who has greed for wealth and power. In the middle of her thoughts, a maid suddenly enters her room, telling her that someone is waiting for her outside, an unexpected guest. It was Duke Schwarzkopf. The side character who supports Aisha in the original plot had come to see her. Robellia is now confused as to why a man like him would possibly want to meet her. The maids advise her to steer clear from him, unwilling to welcome him for being Aisha's advisor. In the original story, Norman was never so bold to seek out Robellia and confront her. Intrigued, Robellia decides to take her chances, and she orders the maids to let him in. This might be a good opportunity to get to know how Norman changes in the current plot. In the garden, Norman and Robellia finally meet. Right before her is her enemy's right-hand man. Unsure of his intentions, she keeps her guard up around him. Apparently, Norman has only encountered Robellia once. It was during her wedding. Hearing this, Robellia can only wonder what business he has with her. While it's true that Norman is close with Aisha, he isn't here to discuss anything related to her. Rather, he's come to inquire about Robellia's donations at St. Joanna's orphanage. Robellia grows more confused, but Norman refuses to go into detail unless all of Robellia's attendants leave, something Caleb and Casey vehemently object to. Despite their protests, Robellia asks them to step out, reassuring them that she'll be fine. Left alone, Norman then begins talking, and he starts by telling her that he has an illegitimate child, leaving Robellia shocked. Okay, but how is this related to the orphanage? The fact that Norman has an illegitimate child is quite concerning. Robellia never expected this since it wasn't mentioned in the original plot. The Duke tells her that it was his wife's dying wish to send their son Ernst far away from the nobles who raised him, fearing that he too would endure the public's perception of House Schwarzkopf, a house of monsters. Heeding her wish, Norman sent their child to the orphanage, where he now apparently goes by the name Aaron. It turns out Norman has actually been sending donations to the orphanage, albeit anonymously. But soon, He stopped donating, fearing that people might start suspecting the anonymous donor to seek out his identity. It broke him to pause his donations, but upon learning that another person had donated, he felt at ease. His son was still being cared for one way or another. Grateful, he tracked down the anonymous donor to the imperial palace, thinking it was Aisha at first. But when he found out it was Robellia and how she did it out of pure kindness, he couldn't help but admire her and show his gratitude. Elsewhere, Alexandros feels emptier despite pouring his heart out to Robellia earlier. For some reason, it feels as though they've drifted farther apart from each other. Alexandros regrets not being more attentive to Robellia. The guilt of it slowly eats away at his conscience, making him lost in thought. Just then, Aisha arrives, interrupting his train of thought. She wants to plead for mercy, asking him to reconsider her probation. But Alexandros only looks at her in quiet disgust and annoyance. She isn't the Aisha that Alexandros first knew. He gives her a reality check, reminding her of their contract and reprimanding her for being negligent to her duties as a consort and saintess. Hearing him, Aisha can no longer hide her true colors. Trying to defend herself, she quips that he can't cast her away. She's the saintess, and he's bound to her by the rules of the holy nation. Unlike Robellia, Aisha would happily stay by his side, hoping to give him everything. Says the girl who can't even do anything right. How dare you? Hearing this, Alexandros gazes at her intently, almost as if driven by a bloodlust to eliminate Aisha. To him, her offenses are clear. She dares to badmouth Robellia in front of him? How ridiculous, he thinks. Being brutally honest, he tells Aisha that she can never compete and compare to Robellia. She's far from being in the same league as Robellia. Minutes later, the Emperor's secretary, Robert, barges in. At Alexandros' insistence, he reports some news, disrupting the conversation between Emperor and consort. Leaving Aisha alone, Robert tells Alexandros that Duke Norman and Robellia are in the garden, alone, having a private conversation. This infuriates Alexandros, and he marches towards their location in an instant. There, he finds the Duke on his knees, planting a kiss on Robellia's hand. Driven by agitation and jealousy, Alexandros interrupts them, much to Robellia's shock. Getting cocky, he calls out Norman for his actions, but unexpectedly, Norman doesn't back down, and the air between the two immediately becomes tense. I don't know, guys, but I smell jealousy. Alexandros starts to advise Norman that it's unethical to show up and visit an official's wife uninvited. Robellia starts to notice the tension between the two men, which confuses her a little, but she quickly understands that they might be talking about Aisha. Girl, they're fighting over you! Hearing what Alexandros said, Norman assured them that his intentions towards Robellia were sincere and promised that he would never hurt Robellia since, to him, Robellia was his benefactor. He then proceeded to leave. I'd rather Robellia ended up with Norman than the Emperor. Witnessing this, the maids start to talk about how cute the love triangle between Alexandros, Robellia, and Norman is, but are quickly reprimanded by the butler. Meanwhile, in a dark alley, a mother and son are desperately hiding from the minister, but the minister easily sees them. The mother quickly begs to spare them and admits that her husband agrees with the organization, but she never approves of her husband's actions since it's a threat to their family. The minister doesn't care about the explanation and proceeds to eliminate the mother and son. The following day, while in her room, Robellia starts to remember what happened yesterday and realizes that Norman might be the one who can help her. Since Norman Schwarzkopf also possesses a tremendous amount of power and wealth, the Northern Territory is also a good place to hide from Alexandros. Yesterday, Norman promised Robellia to help her with anything. Knowing this, Robellia quickly invites Norman and starts to plan how to convince Norman to help her divorce Alexandros. Next, upon meeting again with Norman, he comments that he didn't expect Robellia to initiate their second meeting. She instantly notices that there's no tension in the air with Norman, hence she proceeds with her agenda. After Robellia again asks Norman if he is sincere in helping her with anything, he quits. He quickly swears by the Mestapo oath that everything he says is the truth while smiling at Robellia. Meanwhile, Alexandros receives a report that Robellia and Norman are having a meeting at the moment, making him realize that up to now, Robellia has never liked to run into him by chance. Also, Alexandro notices that she is gradually distancing herself from him, while Robellia is now getting closer to Norman. Realizing this, Alexandros quickly feels grim and smirks since he knows that Robellia doesn't care about him at all. You can't blame Robellia since your actions are so confusing, Alexandros. Meanwhile, Robellia tells Norman that she plans to divorce Alexandros, hence, she needs his help. Hearing this, Norman tells her that she can go abroad to escape Alexandros, and also assures Robellia that he will be a valuable tool for her. The following day, rumors about Robellia and Norman's affair spread like wildfire among the housemaids. Casey tries to comfort Robellia by telling her not to listen to the rumors circulating. Still, Robellia assures her that she's fine, as nothing is going on between her and Norman. Hence, the rumors will soon die down. Hearing this, Casey's mood lightens and she excuses herself. Afterward, alone in the room, Robellia instantly starts to worry, knowing that Alexandros will surely not like to hear about the rumors, especially since the last time rumors about her and Caleb were also spread by others in the palace. Next, Robellia remembers her conversation with Norman. He assured her that she didn't need to give him anything in return for the favor, but deep down, Robellia also wanted to repay Norman's help so that she wouldn't feel any burden. A while later, Robellia quickly stops thinking about it and announces to Casey that she'll be fixing her room in the palace today. Upon arriving at the room, Robellia is surprised to see Alexandros waiting for her. Thus, she asks him what the purpose of his visit is. Alexandros then answers by telling Robellia about the rumor that has been spreading early that morning. Hearing this, Robellia explains to Alexandros that although Norman is a good and courteous man, Alexandros doesn't need to worry about Norman becoming her lover and tainting Alexandros' reputation, since she doesn't plan on falling in love anymore, catching Alexandros off guard. You go, girl! Afterward, while Robellia starts to get preoccupied with fixing her room, everyone begins to panic after noticing that a crate is about to fall towards Robellia, making her freeze in shock on the spot. Luckily, Alexandros is quick enough to pull Robellia away, thus saving her from being hit. After that, the servants quickly approach the two and ask them, worryingly, if they are hurt. However, Robellia is still too shocked to speak, so Alexandros quickly carries her and announces that she should be checked immediately. Hearing this, Robellia instantly tries to assure him that she's fine, but Alexandros doesn't mind this and proceeds to bring her to the room to be checked, leaving the maids shocked by Alexandros' actions. Next, the doctor then informs Alexandros that Robellia is fine. Robellia also complains that she already told him that she was fine, but he does not listen and continues to make a fuss. Because of this, the doctor quickly announces that they should leave the two, as he thinks the couple is about to quarrel. Alone, Alexandros approaches Robellia and begins to share with her that he can't help but worry about her being hurt, and he finds it unbearable even to imagine it. While studying Alexandros' expression, Robellia realizes that what he's saying is sincere and might also mean that Alexandros has already lost someone precious to him. Because of this, Robellia's heart starts beating loudly, making her feel uneasy as well. Robellia begins to remember Alexandros' painful past, where he has always tried to be invisible to other people and the former emperor. When his mother passed away, the past emperor becomes obsessed with his religion. Young Alexandros starts to gather power and troops, and after succeeding, he then attacks the palace and kills the emperor. Afterward, he's crowned as the new emperor. Remembering this, Robellia begins to feel sad for Alexandros. No, don't say you'll fall for him. Don't be stupid. He's using everyone for his gain. Meanwhile, Aisha is curled up in her room, anxiously panicking about the people slowly turning away from her and starting to like Robellia more. While Aisha continues to feel this pressure, she also begins to blame Robellia, but her thoughts are quickly cut off when Aisha realizes that her father is calling her. Aisha quickly answers her father and acts happy during her stay at the palace, but her father doesn't buy her act and reminds her that lying is a sin. Hearing this statement, Aisha instantly bursts into tears and apologized to her father for failing him while trying to explain that she really did her best. But Aisha's father stopped her and then proceeded to inform her that he would be staying in the palace as an honored guest from the Holy Nation. Thus, he will also be helping Aisha get rid of Robellia and become the new empress. Meanwhile, everyone starts to gossip about the foundation named after Robellia, which aims to help people experiencing poverty. At the same time, the other ladies are praising how admirable Robellia is. After hearing the conversation of the ladies, the butler proceeds to report to Alexandros that his plan has received some positive feedback. Still, he slightly feels concerned since Robellia might not like her name being used. Alexandros assures the butler that Robellia will be gracious about it since she has a warm heart and will never try to stop any help that's given to people experiencing poverty. Meanwhile, she hears news that a foundation was named after her, hence she instantly knows that this is all Alexandros' plan to force her to stay. Leaving him and forcing him to divorce is not that hard. Afterward, Robellia meets with Duke Blanchett in the garden, and upon arriving, she's instantly greeted by him. Duke Blanchett then starts by apologizing for meeting her urgently without any prior message, which she replies is fine since they're family, as Duke Blanchett is her father and the man beside him is also her brother. Duke Blanchett starts to praise Robellia, but she quickly stops him and asks him straightforwardly what his reason is for visiting her. Hearing this, Duke Blanchett begins to tell Robellia that they need her financial assistance, as their castle must be sold to repay their debt. Knowing this, Robellia realizes that they're just like her family in her previous life, who only remember her when they need her help and even use her for their gains. Duke Blanchett proceeds to try to guilt-trip Robellia by telling her that she is still a member of the Blanchett family. After hearing that statement, Robellia bursts into anger and pours her tea toward them, making them panic. Robellia then says that she can't believe what they are saying now, since they even sold her off to pay their debt first. And now they also want her to help them again when, in the first place, they can sell the castle in the past so that she doesn't have to be sold off to Alexandros. Family can give us the worst pain. Next, when Robellia is about to walk away, she looks at them emotionlessly and tells them that they're not her family. Afterward, Robellia quickly walks back to her room while trying to calm herself and stop herself from crying. Meanwhile, Alexandros sees Robellia walking fast toward her room with a sad expression, hence he visits her in her room. Upon arriving in Robellia's room, Alexandros slowly sits beside her and starts to apologize for not knowing that she's on bad terms with her family, as he had assumed she was naturally close with them, just like other people. Next, Robellia starts to question why Alexandros married her, which he truthfully answers was initially for legitimacy, as Robellia's family has connections. Hearing this, Robellia looks at him and comments that since no one ever questions his legitimacy now, they can already divorce each other, and Aisha can become his new empress, as Aisha deserves it more than she, who has no more connection or power. Alexandros then looks at Robellia and shares that 3 years ago, he had only treated her as a means to his gain. Still, now it's different, as he has since regretted treating her that way and apologized to Robellia. Because of this, Robellia starts to burst into tears, as all her life no one has ever sincerely apologized to her, and she can't believe that Alexandros will be the first one who makes her experience it. Robellia starts to tell Alexandros that she hates him, but he doesn't mind her and proceeds to hug her instead. Afterward, Robellia calms down and falls asleep while Alexandros stares beside her. He then starts to remember how vulnerable Robellia looks because of how her family treats her. Oh please, I still remember how you let Robellia die in the past. With this in mind, Alexandros walks out and instructs the guards to throw Robellia's family out of the castle, which Duke Blanchett protected. However, Alexandros emphatically tells him that he's still lucky, as it's the only thing he does since he still respects them as Robellia's family. The following day, Alexandros, Robellia, and Aisha welcome the High Priest together, who also expressed his gratitude for the warm welcome. Upon welcoming, Robellia starts to remember when the High Priest appears in the original story, but she realizes that he never appears in the original story. Thus, Robellia thinks that he might be the High Priest and could be a guardian of Aisha. Next, while the maids outside praise how kind and gentle the High Priest is, Aisha and the High Priest are having a serious conversation. Upon securely closing the door, Aisha asks the High Priest what he wants to know about, since she knows that he already knows everything. The High Priest then approached her and stared, asking her to explain and make him understand why Robellia was still with the Emperor, and worse, was now staying in the royal palace. Aisha tries to speak, but only rumbles out some words. Thus, the High Priest furiously slaps her twice for failing her only mission, and even asks Aisha if she knows that Robellia had asked to divorce the Emperor but was rejected by the Emperor. While Aisha is still trembling, the High Priest gently touches her face and reminds her that her face is one of her most potent weapons, hence, she needs to learn how to use it. The High Priest then changes his mind and smiles at Aisha, telling her that he still forgives her. Still, she needs to sign another contract with him in exchange for the complete annihilation of her soul, and a promise that she'll soon be an empress, which Aisha unquestionably accepts. OMG, I think she's being manipulated! The following day, while staring out the window, Robellia starts to realize that a year has passed, and she fails to divorce the Emperor, when in the past, she thought she could get a divorce in a span of 3 months. Robellia also remembers the upcoming party for the inauguration of the social season, which will be hosted by the imperial family, for which she is obligated to help after what happened to her and Alexandros the other night. Feeling the pressure, Robellia decides to walk outside the garden, and as she does, she encounters Aisha, accompanied by the High Priest. Upon approaching her, Aisha happily talks to Robellia and informs her that she is touring the High Priest around. Robellia notices that Aisha looks better than she did the last time she saw her. The High Priest shares with Robellia that he intended to meet her and get the chance to know her. Meanwhile, Aisha starts to remember what the High Priest told her, that Robellia might not be from a different world, but that Robellia only looks the same while her soul might be different. Afterward, when Robellia notices that the High Priest is too close to her, she starts to feel strange, making her feel a little suffocated. However, Alexandros appears out of nowhere, causing the High Priest to back away. Oh, I'm starting to like Alexandros. Alexandros moves closer to Robellia while the High Priest shares that they are only greeting each other. Alexandros comments that he thought the high priest was bothering Robellia, which surprises her with Alexandros' blunt reply, given that the high priest is an essential diplomatic guest. The high priest then apologizes to Robellia, and after Alexandros asks, they continue their conversation inside. However, Robellia quickly declines and announces that she wants to rest for a while. Hearing this, Alexandros also offers Robellia to accompany her to her room. Because of this, the high priest realizes that the emperor doesn't care about Aisha, which gives him a grim expression. Hence, the high priest announces that he also wants to talk more with the saintess, making Aisha freeze in terror. Sometimes I think Aisha deserves the wrath. Next, alone, Robellia asks Alexandros if everything will be alright after he bluntly insults the high priest, but innocently replies that he only did it because the high priest was so close and cozy towards her. Robellia then starts to think about the high priest and whether she can trust him to help her return to her world. But she stops after also realizing that Aisha's relationship with the high priest seems strange. The following day, the hunting competition begins, and Robellia is busy looking around. Two ladies approach her and ask if she wants to join them. Robellia confusingly looks at the two ladies, and they quickly introduce themselves. She, the first lady, introduces herself as Marilyn, the second daughter of the Viscount of Orleans. Marilyn excitedly tells Robellia that she has read about her in the journal, and she can hardly imagine how happy she is to meet Robellia finally. After, the second lady also excitedly introduced herself as Anna, the eldest daughter of Baron Harris. After their brief introduction, Robellia is about to decline the ladies' invitation. Still, Casey quickly stops Robellia and informs the ladies that Robellia would love to join them, making the two ladies more excited. Upon sitting, Anna starts to share with Robellia that she looks up to her for all the hard work and foundation she supports, making her adore Robellia's brilliance. Robellia humbly tells them that not everything she does is as good as they think, but the ladies quickly disagree with her. Afterward, an old lady appears beside Robellia and introduces herself as Countess Liliana Hurst, the woman who taught her manners as a child. Knowing this, Robellia then explains that she had forgotten about her, as it had been a long time since they had last spoken. Liliana didn't mind this remark and proceeded to strictly tell Robellia that her sitting beside the two ladies was hurting the imperial family's reputation and making the other girls express their resentment. Robellia didn't like Liliana's statement, hence, she replied that she is shocked that Liliana thinks the imperial family's reputation is weak and that it can be swayed by sitting beside two ladies, catching Liliana off guard, and tries to explain what she means, but is shut down by Robellia. You go, girl, don't let others boss you around! Liliana then tries to accuse Robellia of being ungrateful towards her, and also voices her disbelief that Robellia enjoys hanging out with ladies like the two. Hearing this, Robellia straightforwardly tells Liliana that she doesn't see any problem sitting with the two ladies, as she's enjoying their company rather than being with the other ladies who are fake and only act as if they like her while criticizing her behind her back. Liliana then walked out, embarrassed. Next, Marilyn praises Robellia and comments that she is more remarkable than what the article has written about her. Afterward, Alexandros arrives and starts to act lovingly toward her, making the two ladies shocked and begin to gush about how romantic the emperor is. They then start to discuss how Alexandros and Norman tied at the hunting competition. Still, Alexandros quickly comments that he wants Robellia's attention for himself, as he doesn't want to share it with anyone else. Meanwhile, the other ladies who see and overhear Alexandros' kindness towards Robellia try to comfort Aisha. Still, Aisha only tells them that Alexandros is cold towards her due to a misunderstanding, earning her pity. As a result, the other ladies start to dislike Robellia. Gosh, Aisha is getting on my nerves! Afterward, Robellia drags Alexandros outside for a walk to escape the attention, and as they walk, Alexandros starts to comment that it's been a long time since he had a walk. Hearing this, Robellia realizes that since he became the emperor, free time might be a great luxury for him, and when she starts to feel sad for Alexandros, she quickly brushes it off since it's none of her business. As they walk, a wounded fox approaches them. Alexandros quickly shields Robellia from the fox and instructs her to retreat. Still, upon seeing the injured fox, Robellia stops Alexandros from hurting it and even asks him not to harm the fox. Because of this, Robellia proves herself to be a lovely person. Norman then appears out of nowhere and swiftly carries the fox. Norman then greets Robellia and shares that he found them when he hears two voices while hunting. Alexandros then tries to boast to Norman that a mere fox can't make him win, but Norman informs him that he now comes first from Alexandros while he's away, which shocks Alexandros. Oh, I love the two bantering! So guys, what do you think of this story so far? Please subscribe and turn on notifications for updates on this and all our other stories, so you can be the first to find out when they're out. Thank you so much for your support. See you in the next one!